The news last night that Daniel Levy had accepted an offer from Bayern Munich for Harry Kane and that Kane would be flying to Germany for a medical today seems to be concluding one of the most talked about transfer sagas of this window. After rejecting all previous offers from Bayern and seeing Man United turn their attention to Rasmus Højlund, it was starting to feel as though Kane might be staying at Tottenham after all. When he left the pitch just 5 days ago, having scored 4 goals against Shakhtar Donetsk, with the Premier League just starting, it felt as though, despite yet another window of intense speculation, his future would be at Spurs after all. The answer to Harry's apparent dilemma, whether to stay and break records or to leave and win silverware, had apparently been answered. He'd clearly chosen to spend at least one more year at Tottenham to take himself within touching distance of Alan Shearer's Premier League record. Then, suddenly last night, everything changed. He has, it seems, decided on silverware after all. So he's chosen to leave a club where he's a living legend, a club where he's spent his entire career and most of his life, a club that offers him unparalleled influence, where he has nothing left to prove. He's decided to leave this and uproot his life and his family to join one of the world's most ego-filled dressing rooms at a club which is undergoing a transition and where the expectations are stratospherically high. I think this has been the real dilemma for Harry. A lot is made of the fact that Manchester City came close to signing him 2 years ago, that Daniel Levy blocked the transfer by demanding too much money, and since Kane still had 3 years left to run on his contract, Daniel Levy held all the cards. But is that the whole story? Surely we can all agree that players of today really have much more control in this area. If they really want to move, they do get the move. Was Harry Kane just too nice to force the issue? Or was he nervous about a move? Kane's talked in the past about his confidence issues. Is it possible that even as a record goal scorer and captain of England, he still doubts himself? Is he scared to fail? Is he a nice guy, slightly shy and unassuming, the type that everybody likes, but without that killer instinct, that ruthless ambition that drives players to success? He scores goals, enough to be considered a top goal scorer, and one with an outstanding record over an entire career. But those goals dry up in the biggest games, when it really matters. Confidence may very well be exposed in the FC Hollywood dressing room. He is, after all, leaving a group of players behind at Spurs who, when they end their careers, will most likely talk about him as the best they ever played with. And he's joining players who still remember Lewandowski and who Harry Kane is meant to replace. The question is, can he? Since Lewandowski left Bayern, they've struggled not necessarily to score the same number of goals, but to score the same number of important goals. He was almost the ultimate match winner, and that's why he's won 11 league titles with 3 different teams. He won the Sextuple with Bayern in 2020, and has been Ballon d'Or Striker of the Year, amongst dozens of other accolades. He didn't join Bayern to win silverware. He'd beaten them to the league in 2 successive seasons at Dortmund. He left to win obscene amounts of silverware. There is not enough silver to sate his appetite. Since leaving Bayern, he's helped Barcelona regain their crown at the summit of La Liga. He's a player who doesn't go to a club because it gives him a chance to win things. He's going to win things, he just decides who to share them with. This is the man Bayern are looking to replace with Harry Kane, a man who has 3 runners-up medals from the 3 times his goals would really have mattered and didn't come. On the very same evening that the agreement between Spurs and Bayern was announced, Kane annoyed Bayern fans by seeming to have to decide whether he wanted to join or not. These are fans who are singularly unused to players not wanting to join them, even from other elite clubs. The idea that he might choose Tottenham was as baffling as it was insulting. And today has not been without incident. It was reported that Daniel Levy didn't want to allow Harry Kane to go for the medical today because he would be eligible, therefore, to play for the Super Cup tomorrow, and it was said it would be embarrassing if the very first day after Harry Kane left Tottenham was the first day in his career he won silverware. That was swiftly denied by Tottenham, and it does seem that he is now flying to Germany for that medical to make the change. And he leaves with the blessing of Spurs fans. It's a little bit like that scene in Good Will Hunting where Matt Damon's character talks about not wanting to leave his friends, and Ben Affleck's character tells him that part of what he looks forward to every day is that the idea that his best friend will leave to achieve a life he couldn't even dream of. Spurs fans want their hero to shine on the world stage. They want to be able to bask in his reflective glory. Harry's family want him to leave and become the legend that his talents deserve. Everyone seems to be happy for Kane to take the next step. But is Harry? Is he doing what he thinks he should rather than what he really wants to? Beyond that, there is of course the question of, will this move be a success? Like all good questions, there's more than one answer. Will Kane score goals in Germany? Yes, of course he will. But will he score enough when it really matters? Let's look at this transfer and judge it against 7 criteria of things that usually make a big difference to the success of any transfer. First of all, is the player the club is signing as good as everybody thinks? Even Harry Kane's detractors would have to accept that he is a great footballer who has an eye for goal like very few others and a proven record as a goal scorer. He's not a player that just came along. He's played in the Premier League all his career and he is within a whisker of becoming the greatest goal scorer in that league. So it's unlikely that Bayern are going to be disappointed by how good he actually is. Does Harry Kane fit the system? Yes, he does. He might come a little bit deep for a Bayern forward, but I think that in a side full of creative talent, he can exploit that by keeping in a position nearer the top of the pitch. Is there any chance they might play him out of position? No, there's no chance that you buy a number 9 like Harry Kane and play him anywhere else. Does the manager like the player? Well, I'll hand over to Thomas Tuchel on that. And this is from a press conference when he was Chelsea manager in a game where Harry Kane was not necessarily going to be featuring.
Well, I would say it's always easier if Harry Kane is not playing. This is a given. This is for sure, and this is absolutely no secret. Harry Kane is one of the best number 9s in the world, and like you said, when he's in shape, maybe the role model on the number 9 that every coach and every team wishes for in terms of work rate, in terms of ambition, in terms of mentality, attitude, and for sure goal scoring.
Fitness and personal issues. Harry Kane's not the type to have a crazy personal life incident disrupt his career. And his fitness record has been, apart from one blemish, really good. And the 6th criteria, is there a better player at the squad already? No, I don't think there is. There's a couple of young players coming through who might be. But overall, Harry Kane will be one of the first names on a team sheet, provided everything goes well. Is the cost going to be a factor? Whilst on the surface €100 million price tag seems like a weight of pressure, actually in today's game it really isn't. Assessed on these 7 criteria, it very much looks like his transfer will be a success to Bayern Munich. But there are a couple of interesting variables. 1. Well, Bayern Munich sacked Julian Nagelsmann because there was a lack of faith in him at board level and because he'd clearly fallen out with Kane and Salihamidzic. They were really quick to replace him with Thomas Tuchel, and the idea being that Tuchel would get Bayern back to playing like Bayern. It hasn't quite worked out like that. He was knocked out of the Champions League and the German Cup at the first attempt, and only won the Bundesliga on the last day because, frankly, I hate to say it, Borussia Dortmund bottled him. Tuchel is under a huge amount of pressure. Julian Nagelsmann, by the way, still hasn't found a job. So, is it possible that having sacked the board that sacked him, Uli Hoeneß might be thinking along the lines of bringing Julian Nagelsmann back as an adequate replacement for Tuchel and getting this project kick-started again? I don't know. I'm not sure. That might be a little bit outlandish. But certainly Tuchel is under pressure to perform quickly. Winning the Bundesliga is not even a minimum requirement. It's just an expectation now. They've just done 11 in a row. It's impossible to see how he keeps his job if he doesn't make it 12. So could it be that Kane, very much wanted as part of this Bayern side by Tuchel, might find Tuchel gone and someone coming in after him who doesn't necessarily think Kane is the greatest thing since sliced bread? Might Kane not get on with the rest of the dressing room? Players don't always get on at Bayern. Look at Sadio Mane. He left Liverpool in his pomp as one of Europe's elite forwards. He found it so difficult settling into that squad that he actually punched Leroy Sané after a match. It is a difficult dressing room to get along in. Kane is going to need to fight for their respect. He's going to need to prove himself early on. It would be great if he did play in the Super Cup for Bayern tomorrow and did win his first piece of silverware. Maybe that would go a long way to settling his confidence issues. But even with that, can he ever be Lewandowski? Will he ever be as important to the Bayern fans? He has a 4-year contract, which at the age of 30 is strong. He's the sort of player, though, that doesn't rely on pace and you can kind of see him playing till he's 36, 37. There's still a very good chance that if it doesn't work out with Bayern, he could come back to the Premier League and take up where he left off. What if he doesn't win the Bundesliga? What if he doesn't win silverware at Bayern Munich? It sounds ridiculous to say it, doesn't it? But it's not impossible. It could happen that way. What does that do for Harry Kane's reputation? And on to the final question, which is, what do Spurs do without their talismanic captain, Harry Kane, their one truly world-class player? Well, of course, last season they signed Richarlison, and so far that's been an unmitigated disaster. If he's going to stand in for Kane, he can't possibly do as badly as he did last season. It's quite typical of Spurs to leave this sale to the very point in the window where it's going to have the biggest impact on the start of the season. Postecoglou will be glad now to finally know one way or another, but has he got time to go and replace Harry Kane? The only realistic chance Tottenham have of replacing Harry Kane is with a young, undiscovered player who is probably unfancied by the other top clubs. Because Tottenham's pull in going out and getting one of the elite name players is just not there. And Postecoglou may well be about to be one of the most successful managers in the Premier League, but up to now, he hasn't really got any big game experience. So they're not going to go and attract the kind of player that's a like-for-like replacement straight away. They have to take a bit of a punt. Honestly, Tottenham's transfer record over the last 6 or 7 years has been really shoddy. So how difficult is the start of the season going to be for Tottenham? I don't think it's going to be a good start to the season. But there is a chance here that Kane was part of the problem at Spurs. That as a captain he was too nice, that he wasn't a fighter in the way that Spurs needed. They do need to bring in a different mentality at that club. And I think they've started with the manager, which is the best place to start. The money that they get for Kane isn't going to make a difference. They may find themselves in deep trouble, and then it comes down to Daniel Levy and whether he sticks with Postecoglou or scrambles to get a big name replacement. The one thing that is very true of Harry Kane is that if you took his goals away from Spurs last season, they might well have been relegated. Is that a possibility for Tottenham now? Time will tell. My fingers are crossed, obviously. In summation, Harry Kane's dilemma was to stay in the safe, warm, comfortable club he'd known all his life, or to make a very bold decision to join an elite club and really stake his reputation on his ability to win silverware. He seems now to have decided to take that risk, to make that jump, but I think he does it without the confidence of the players who really go on to become greats. I think he will be fondly remembered by the Bayern fans, but that really is down to how well Tuchel does at turning that ship around. Bayern, I think, are in for a difficult season if they totally rely on Harry Kane. A difficult season for Bayern. Could see changes at Bayern that go against Harry Kane's chances of being a huge success there. I'm not sure of his chances of being a huge success there in any case. I just don't think his personality will dominate in the dressing room in the way it needs to. Again, time will tell. But for now, Tottenham are without their one truly world-class player. Bayern Munich have taken steps to fix a problem left by Lewandowski leaving, which I suppose I can be glad about. The Tottenham fans are naturally incensed, angrier than ever at Daniel Levy, and not without good reason. There has been a really shoddy approach to this transfer if the net end result is that he leaves, because this business could have been settled much sooner and the funds could have been used to prepare for Harry Kane leaving in a way that it will be difficult to do as the transfer window nears a close. All of us on some level, certainly football fans, know what it's like to have a player that you really don't want to go. In my time, I remember losing Vieira, Henry. Well, actually, I don't want to go through the list. But all fans know what this feels like. We can all sympathise with Tottenham fans today. And wish Harry Kane all the best in not failing dramatically at Bayern Munich.